let me introduce you to our guest today, Zenzi. Zenzi is a geologist. Maybe you can see a bit of her profile on the one I've just written, but she's a geologist and she's a very influential person in our women, in our Africa Women in Mining. Actually, she's now the vice president. Zenzi is a founding president of Women in Mining Association of Namibia. She's also the current vice president for Association of Women in Mining Africa, AWIMA, and is a proud owner of Zenzi's Coffee Shop. The Mining Global magazine ranked Zenzi as the third most influential woman in mining in its 10 global women. In December 2021, the Namibian president rewarded Zenzi with the Namibian National Award of the Most Excellent or First Class Women. And Zenzi is a perfect geologist. When I've got geological questions, I always try and contact Zenzi. So welcome, Zenzi, to our forum today. Today, our title is Reimagining ASM associations in Africa post-COVID. What we're just trying to say here is artisanal and small-scale mining associations are widely acknowledged for their role in promoting and mobilization and organization to bring the power of numbers to bargain with policymakers and regulators. COVID-19 disrupted significantly the capabilities of ASM associations, and new ways of mobilizing and organizing emerged. Post-COVID-19, there's a need to take stock, to pick lessons and reimagine the role of ASM associations. This forum we have today, this webinar we have today, presents a space of artisanal and small-scale miners and stakeholders to exchange knots across the continent to enhance the power of ASM associations. So I'm glad to have Zenzi today to talk to us. I'm not going to go much into what Delvi Exchange is. You can go on our website and on the Delvi Exchange website and see what we have done, what we're doing. So I'm going to leave the floor to Zenzi to speak to us. Thank you, Zenzi, for coming through. And can I leave this time for you?
Thank you very much. First of all, that was quite an elaborate introduction. I always cringe whenever I hear all those those accolades. But thank you very much, Blessing. It's an absolute honor for me to be on this platform today. I've been watching the interactions, and what a befitting topic that you're getting me on here for. I was a little bit nervous initially because I still am, because I'm not a expert in small scale mining. I come from the large scale mining sector. So, but because it's an exchange, I hope that what I will be sharing today will at least impart some knowledge and perhaps be helpful to the audience. I have prepared some slides. It's only 3 slides really. Let me see if I can share it. Just a second. Okay. Can you see the screen? We're doing a typical COVID-related presentation where we're asking if can everybody see the screen?
Perfect, we can see it. It's lovely, lovely, very nice. Thank you for the Delve Exchange reference, and it's a beautiful, beautiful slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is the official template for AWIMA presentations. And since I am representing AWIMA, I thought let me show off our new slides. So today my topic is the importance of mine surveying in small scale mining, and allow me to elaborate a little bit. When we start reimagining how things are done, or how, because we always said that COVID has given us a new reality, isn't it? So I thought that if we want to reimagine, um, what is it, small scale mining in Africa post-COVID, why not be a little bit think outside of the box? So I'm going to bring into you well, as a discussion point on what else can we do a little bit differently to what is currently being done. And even that I'm speaking under a lot of correction, because what I know of small scale mining is literally what I learned from you ladies and from what's happening on the WhatsApp platform. One of the things I'm very passionate about is creating change. And we know as geologists that the normal way of looking for minerals has to change as well, because minerals they're finite. So all the base minerals have been mined already. So now we have to think of better ways to look at it. So I thought, why not looking, or actually there was more a topic that came from Blessing, but why not look at what is the importance of surveying in small scale mining? So I'm starting off with, yes, a definition. So mine surveying is an essential component in the mining industry, because from the beginning of to the end of mine, it provides technical support in terms of the measurement of the resource, how we report on our resource, the positional accuracy. And I think in terms of small scale mining, this part is probably very important, as well as the direction of the deposit in terms of the mining process. So I just highlighted three important, there are many others, but I thought I'll highlight three important points to why mine surveying is important. The first one is, well, mine surveying is mostly used to help find underground mining resources, mineral resources, right? So it helps to scope out potential mining location. And by so doing, it minimizes the risk that a potential mining resource might not contain resources. So it shows the best location. The second part is that it provides information about the mine and as well as the tunnel dimensions. This one is so important in terms of safety, because if you know where this thing is lying, if the map is indicating to you where it's lying, you can always find ways to avoid that shortfall. And then also most importantly, most importantly is mine surveying through various methods can highlight geological features and irregularities. English, discovered by drill holes and opening that can be anticipated. So a mine surveyor, this actually is my only slide, my last slide. A mine surveyor doesn't do all of this in isolation. He works with all the I want to call it the value chain of the mine. So he works very closely with the geologists. My forte is exploration geology, so I cannot do anything without my mine surveyor or my land surveyor, as a matter of fact. So and he also works very closely with the metallurgist, who will then, and the mining engineer rather, who will then be able to give directions to how else the tunnel can be moved. So how will this knowledge that we have just shared now help in reimagining how things are done? Is basically, look, it's a costly exercise, we all know that, but I think it's sometimes with this new way of mining, we have to think costs to make more money, because the important resource you want to look after is the human resource, the one who's actually mining the deposit that you are mining. Yeah, so I didn't want to speak too much at the risk of talking stuff that doesn't make sense to myself. So that is my last slide, and I will take any questions. Thank you. Blessing.
Thank you, Zenzi. Thank you very much for the slides. Before we put questions to you, I know we've got leaders of mining associations who are in, like Kundai. Kundai, are you on? Can you hear me, Kundai?
Yes, I can hear you, Blessing.
Okay, the connection here is quite bad. But Kundai was going to explain, I mean, what how mining associations are working now after past the COVID. As a mining association leader in the region and in your community, what do you think, before we put questions to Zenzi, before we put questions, can you just do a comment? Then maybe we can start putting our questions to Zenzi.
Hey, Blessing, thank you. Okay, the situation now, right now, for most miners post-COVID, is most miners are trying to recover from the post-COVID situation, because most miners during the COVID pandemic, they were not working. Now that they now want consumables that are needed for the mining sector, for the mines to operate.
Blessing, is this very difficult to understand?
The second one is
Kundai,
put it in the chat.
Kundai,
access, although the numbers have actually improved, but they're still finding it difficult. The vaccines, because they still have to walk those long. Yes. Yes.
Kundai, your sound is very breaking up. We're finding it very hard to follow you. Blessing, did you catch the gist of her question, or shall we ask her to put it in the chat?
I did not, Linda. I've just put in a chat. Well, let's ask Kundai. Can you please just put your contribution maybe in the chat? Your line is very, very bad. But I've seen some leaders in mining associations who are also on the forum, like Monica, who could maybe share. But my question to Zenzi is, why do you think geological survey is good for artisanal small-scale miners? As a geologist, I would want you to maybe explain why you think geological survey is very important for artisanal small-scale miners. Why do you think there's real need of a surveyor, to have a surveyor on a mine? What is the real need of having that surveyor? And what is the real need of having a geologist on a small scale, on a mine site? What can you please just really empty it out? Why myself as a small scale miner, why I would really need a geologist to be stationed at my small scale mine, and why I would need a surveyor to be stationed at my small site? Then my second question, Zenzi, is as an association leader in Africa, what do you think we can do after the COVID, from what we used to do before COVID? What can you put out? What can help artisanal small-scale miners as an association? How can you help them to improve what they are doing after this COVID era? I don't know if my questions are clear, Zenzi, but I've put quite a lot.
So I'm glad Monica is on here, because the second one I'm throwing right at her. She's qualified to answer that. But yeah, let me do the first one. That's a good question. So maybe the geologist and the mining surveyor does not have to be stationed at site, but the importance of having them is for me is quite simple. It's an economic decision, because they will help to delineate the deposit for the owner of the small scale mine. So it's almost like what I always, and I'll try and simplify it, is a geologist tries to a geologist assists in trying to narrow the search for a needle in a haystack, simply put. So you will, instead of going to dig around, a geologist with the knowledge that we have gained, we'll be able to delineate. In other words, we'll be able to tell you exactly where the deposit starts and where it ends. And we can even do calculations on how the value of the deposit and so forth. So for me, that is the importance of having a geologist. And with the mine surveyor, I hope I covered that in the presentation. Basically, they help with the measurement of the ore deposit that comes out of the mine, and it helps with the accuracy of positional accuracy, because you'll want to know exactly where you will be digging for this deposit. So Monica, the second part, can you take it over? Monica.
Hello, Monica.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
We can hear you. Do you mind repeating? Zenzi has thrown me under the bus here. What was the second part? The second part of the question.
The second part of the question, Monica, was if you can read our flyer, it's actually talking about what associations have done before COVID, what they used to do, and now after the COVID, what is it that associations can do to really put out, or to help out artisanal small-scale miners to show what they can do. What is it that associations can do?
Okay. I think the traditional roles of the associations, especially the ASM association, had been to bring together miners to lobby for common interests. So in the case of ASM, there'd be issues around land issues, access to land, access to permitting, formalization challenges, capital issues. And then when COVID happened, we saw associations moving in quickly.
They got it. If I got it.
Can you please mute yourself if you're not speaking, Hawa? Thank you.
Has she muted?
I'm muting her now. Trying to mute her anyway. Oh, it's not letting me do that. That's strange. Okay. I'll mute.
Okay, I'll continue.
Yeah, you
she
continue.
won't speak
Yep.
over. Yeah. And then during COVID, we saw a lot of associations moving in to assist, especially like the women associations. We saw them speak out a lot around how women were being disproportionately affected by COVID initiatives that the governments were putting in place to restrict mining and access to mines. And most of the women became multitasked. Some of them who couldn't stop mining, you had children who are not going to school, they're taking care of them. And a lot of the women associations really stood in and spoke out about how women were being affected, and the fact that any support and any initiatives that were coming up needed to look at the woman differently and how she was being impacted and how she could be supported. So at that point, we also saw through such lobbying by women associations, a few organizations mobilizing grants that helped grassroots initiative by women in associations to assist. Some of them lobbied around gender-based violence. Some of them lobbied against around provision for mines access, provision for security gear. How would they lessen the suffering of these women? And a lot of that came because of the voices of the associations that put forward and were able to visibly bring to focus the effects that COVID were having on these women. We also, like case in point for the project that you're doing in Zambia and Malawi, were able to work with associations as well because one strength association has is in numbers and ability to bring together miners from different parts of their countries together and communicate, which with the restrictions of travel during COVID, you couldn't easily do, but the associations had the infrastructure and the networks to keep in touch with the members. So some of the projects that we did, actually we worked very well with these associations because they were able then to use their existing communications structures to reach out, pass out, communication word of some of the initiatives that we were doing. On our part, we were trying to sell gemstones virtually, and we were able to do this and access very remote miners through use of the associations and the networks of the associations. So during COVID, that ability for miners, dealers, and everybody to work together and have associations, really showed the strength and the space that associations played. Moving forth, I think there's a strong case for continuing to institutionalize and support and strengthen most of these associations, because most of them, in terms of governance issues, structures, and systems, it weakens their ability to be able to be more effective in delivering the mandate of their members. So supporting in continuing to strengthen and institutionalize these associations, help them come up with creative and innovative ways to be able to remain sustainable, because you don't want associations that have been functioning or continue to function then fizzle off because of lack of institutional capacity. Giving them, training, governance training for those who take up leadership within those associations to be able to then meet the objectives of the leaders. And then there's also conflict issues that come up a lot with the association, whereby they are not able to continue to meet their mandate because of internal conflicting. How can they be supported in terms of governance issues and structuring, capacity building to be able to meet their objectives and those of their members? So I think that would be my take on that, Blessing. I hope it has added a few more to what was presented previously.
Thank you so much, Monica. Then I think you've almost answered the question which is in the chat box. Maybe you can also look at it and we can just, you can answer it. There is a question, a statement that Cletus Chisango has just typed. He's saying, hello, I'm Cletus Chisanga from Chirundu border, that is border of Zimbabwe and Zambia. I would like to thank you for allowing me to participate in this meeting. It's great to educate us on small-scale mining, and possibly we need to have a platform that can convince people in authority to give room for small-scale miners to do mining business freely. There's so much restrictions that seem not necessary. It's also vital to have such forums where we can exchange best practices in mining. So the question on how to have a platform that can convince people in authority. So I think you have touched it a bit by saying if we come in our numbers and build out associations and lobby to the government, they would actually hear us. But maybe you can add a bit to Cleta's question, Monica. Can you put your comment on Cleta's question?
Thank you, Blessing. I totally agree with that sentiment, because even when you read most of the mining codes in most countries that acknowledge the existence of artisanal and small-scale miners, most of them talk about having them and organizing them into cooperatives and groups so that they are able to have an ease in addressing them, accessing them, licensing them, and supporting them towards formalization. And then I think this comes in because of the informality at times of how artisanal miners operate, and the mobility of artisanal miners, which they keep moving to where the deposits are. So ability to be able to put them in groups, cooperatives and associations is actually what even the governments and other stakeholders want. Then it's easy to be able to address the artisanal miners. It's also easy to be able to have interventions and support for the artisanal miners when they're in groups and setups. Then you're able to have numbers. You're able to map them out more effectively, and also be able to better address most of the challenges which tend to be quite similar in most of the situations. If it's environmental issues, working with them in terms of numbers and groups becomes easier. If it's access to even support to equipment, facilitating them to access equipment, giving them some form of financial assistance, always easier when they're in numbers and in cooperatives. And also for the artisanal miners themselves, and this is something that I greatly advocate, that when you put them into groups and cooperatives, don't do a top-up approach. Let it be bottom-up, where it is the miners themselves who create these associations and groupings, so that they best understand each other and the need for that grouping. And that way, they are also able to see the strength in lobbying together. And when it's their own initiative, where they both understand the need for why they came together, they become very strengthened in terms of lobbying and being able to speak out for each other when there are issues, and when there are no issues, to proactively also agitate for what needs to be done to support them.
Thank you very much, Monica, for the explanation. Dr. Salau, I've just seen a comment you've just put in the chat box. You said, please, each country should have a uniform structure for ease of regional coalition. Can you please explain what you mean by this, Dr. Salau?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak in this medium. You know, we've been talking about organization and formalization of ASM. And we are talking about Africa. Africa is made up of at least about 54 countries. Each one of them having their way and manner which they operate. Yes, if we have a structure, like in this place, we have our code, we have the region, we have the coordinates of the area, everything put together. The activities of each area can now be written out. When that is written, because we have a standard structure, it's just for us to lift it up and place it in, and it will be fixed into the appropriate area. We all talk about environment, is the same everywhere. If you don't know the geology of minerals you are mining, how best will you be able to do that? Geology of an area is very essential. You put the geology. The kind of mining, is it alluvia? Is it hard rock or what? You put that in your own association too, such that anybody that is coming up to help, we know the area where they can place their own coins. That's what I mean by structure. If you want me to go more, I can send in a template that are made available. I will send it to the Madam Blessing for you to look at what I'm talking about. If we don't do this, we will just be coming up every day without knowing which and what exactly do we need to put in place. We've been talking about artisanal and small-scale mining, organization, formalization. For the last 2 years, we have not gotten the structure to go around. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Salau. Can you kindly maybe just introduce yourself so that everybody knows you and what you do? And I'll go back again to Monica. Monica, I know you've got vast experience in mining, small-scale mining and associations. Would like, after Dr. Salau, Monica, can you introduce yourself as well? Before I'm going to call upon again, after you have finished introducing yourself, Chichi, can you prepare Chiedza Chipangura? She's also an association leader of women in mining. She has actually started several associations for women in mining, to put your comment after the introductions. So Dr. Salau, can you introduce yourself and what you do? And Monica, can you also introduce yourself and what you do? Then we'll go on to Chiedza.
All right, thank you very much, Blessing. I'm Dr. S.L. Salau from Nigeria. I'm a retired civil servant in the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, Nigeria. Right now, I have my own NGO in capacity building and environmental assistance in the mining sector. I'm a member of Women in Mining Nigeria. I'm a member of Miners Association Nigeria. And I'm also a member of one woman, the only woman that I appreciate and I always talk about, who has been doing mining on her own from this cradle. She's now 60 plus and she's still doing it alone and she's moving on. And I will bring her on board one of these days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Salau. Madam Monica, can you introduce yourself as well? Then we go on to Chieza.
Yeah, thank you, Blessing. I am Monica Gishuhe. I am based in Nairobi, Kenya. I am a retired founding member of the Association of Women in Mining in Kenya. I'm a retired board member of the Association of Women in Mining in Africa. Currently, I work with the artisanal and small-scale miners in the gemstone supply chain, doing mines to market responsible sourcing initiatives. Currently, we are working in Zambia, Malawi, and Kenya. Yes, in short. Thank you, Blessing.
Thank you, Madam Monica. Chieza, can you put your comment, please? You're a person who has formed associations as well of women miners. What is your input? What do you think can be done by associations to boost up artisanal small-scale mining industry just after this COVID era?
Thank you so much, Blessing. My name is Chieza Chipangura. I'm a woman miner in gemstones, chrome, and recently I've just started gold. I got into gold during the COVID pandemic. So it's quite an experience, learning a lot. And I've been part of associations for women miners. We have got Women Empowerment in Mining Zimbabwe, Women in Mines and Mining Development Trust. We are also affiliated to the Zimbabwe Miners Federation, a body that represents artisanal miners in the country. Regarding the topic at hand, I think there is so much that still needs to be done. I've realized in my country that there has been some kind of a laid-back approach since the COVID pandemic, whereby you see some associations disintegrating, like when people were under the lockdown, people became kind of separated, like there was not much movement, there was not much of exchange between miners, and a new way of living, a new way of operating has actually transpired. It is now, there's a new norm, but in that new norm, it had taken away the pace, the momentum that had been gathered regarding the effectiveness of associations. However, I still feel associations still need to come up with laid up structures on how to function as an association. What does it mean for someone to be a member of an association? Because my thinking is when people join these associations, they're joining for different reasons. Some are joining in the hoping of getting financial assistance. Some do join in the hope of getting technical assistance. Some do join for the reason of wanting to learn. So every association, for it to thrive, it must have clearly defined objectives. It's not safe, it's not right to have too many goals, because that association is bound to burn out. It is bound to fail in delivering, because now people want to see deliverables, things that are tangible that they get from the associations. When it comes to funding, there's so much need for transparency with the way in the way that association funds are handled. An association cannot function without money, without funding. And in most cases, funding may come from the miners in the form of subscriptions, or it will come as donations, or it will come as grants. If it comes as a grant, you need to feed back the grantors of that funding on how you have used that money. And they should be measurables to see how effective that funding has been, so that that association is funded onto the next stage. So associations need to be transparent in the way they operate. They need to be transparent in their fundings. Another point is there is need to have clear-cut guidelines and responsibilities on who is doing what in the association. Because I've noticed that after the COVID pandemic, some associations, you only realize that only the head or the executive or the are the ones who are still standing. All the other members, they've kind of taken a step back. I attribute that to a lack of clear-cut guidelines. Members of associations need to be given responsibility. Association members need to monitor each other on the input that each and everyone is making towards the association. Unlike having an association with 200 members, 50 members who are not really doing anything. So it is very important to have clear-cut responsibilities. In terms of capacity building and knowledge exchange, associations need to build relationships, have memorandum of understandings with either suppliers of goods, stakeholders like the environmental agencies, provide technical institutes which train different expertise in the sector. So associations need to have such relationships for them to prosper. COVID is here. It's not going anywhere, but we are there as miners to find better means and ways to continue operating safely. So we need to up our game as miners associations. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Chieza Chipangura. Transparency issues raised there very well. The discussion is getting quite interesting, and I think there are lots of people with questions. But let me go to the chat box a bit. Is there somebody with a burning question before I read out Kundai Chikonzo's questions? Okay. Okay. If there's no one with a burning question,
Blessing?
I'm going to go to the chat. Yes, Linda.
Excuse me, Blessing. Pardon me, everybody, for interrupting. One of the things we're very keen to do is always to capture the gender balance of our forums, which is sometimes quite hard to do because people use different names. So I'm just going to launch a little very quick poll, which as we're just sort of about halfway through, and then you can then go to Kunda's question. Okay. So I'll just launch this and ask everyone just to fill it in. It's very easy.
Interesting.
you okay, Linda?
Yeah, I'll just leave it open there, and Blessing, you can go ahead. It's please, if everyone could answer, that makes a huge difference. The World Bank is likely to ask us tomorrow, how many women, how many men in this group, and it's not easy to tell sometimes. Thank you so much. Please go ahead. Blessing, it sounds like you've lost your connection.
Can you hear me, Linda?
Yes, I can, but let's go to the chat question. We seem to have a bit of a problem. Blessing seems to have disappeared. She was looking at the questions by Kundai. So let's have a look. If you could just have a look through the chat. Kundai's got quite a few questions here. Most associations are still trying to recover from post-COVID. Hence, as leaders of associations, we are training miners on financial management, product development, capacity building, and product development. That's an interesting choice there. Really emphasizing that COVID has taught us lessons about the need for financial management. Yeah, in a sense, all recovery should not be spent. I guess this is learning to good financial management. Stockpiling, plugging back most of the funds, making use of specialist personal surveyors, engineering to plan and determine their resource. Absolutely. Good mine management. Is there a question here? Further, we are training further as it's there. Yeah, so really it's a comment, and interesting comments about the need for training, diversity, and I'm particularly interested in questions related to women and the impacts of child labor, because I think one of the things that we've found from research across the world, not just in mining but everywhere, is that so many young women have stopped going to school, and the number of many of the gains that were had in terms of you know, girls going to school and reduced numbers of female genital mutilation, some of those gains have been lost because girls are not at school and they're, you know, young, early pregnancies and so on. So there's a lot of work to do there, and I'm sure that the women's mining associations are well positioned. I've just summarized Kundai's questions. Is anyone wanting to make a comment on them? Anyone want to comment on her saying that financial training is really crucial now, as well as educating women?
Hi, I can comment.
Thank you.
Can I go ahead?
Would you please? Yeah, please just remind us. I think you have introduced yourself.
Yes, very true. Financial literacy and management has become very critical. In Zimbabwe, we face a shortage of explosives, particularly, and other consumables. And remember, there was limited movement, though our government allowed us to have exemption letters but still movement was restricted, and we do not manufacture some consumables in this country. So deliveries were held at the port either in South Africa or Mozambique. So without proper financial management, you can't stock up your consumables. Before COVID, we used to live from hand to mouth. And even if when you are so lucky to make so much, we never used to have to stock materials because, you know, this mentality that you're just going back to make some more. So with the coming in of the pandemic and the shortages that came into play that time, we have realized as miners that it is very much important to have stocks for at least a month as your buffer stock. We never used to have something like that. So it is very important. It has also helped us as miners to think ahead. You know, like you think big. Yes, we are artisanal miners. We don't want to remain artisanal because during the COVID pandemic, excuse me for that, during the COVID pandemic, we couldn't even find some way to hire equipment. So now it has taught us that as a miner, you need to have at least all the equipment. You need to plow back the money that you get from your mining exploits. You need to plow it back into your mining project. It was a hard lesson, and now because we were banned, we are also teaching others that the only way to go is to manage our finances very well. We can't keep doing guesswork in mining. We need to engage professionals so that we know what resource we are sitting on and how best to extract it. Thank you for that, Kundai.
Thank you, Chiedza Chimangra. Sorry, my network is a bit, but I think it's stable now. Before we wind up, I'd like to put back our guest of honor on the floor, Zenzi, and so that maybe from what has been said, to just wind up your presentation, and maybe if you have another comment, then before we all wind up our forum today. So can I give the floor to Zenzi?
Blessing. I mean, yeah, I think my contribution was mostly on the importance of surveying or having a mine surveyor or a geologist to in the process of reimagining the work of artisanal small scale miners, and everything else that was spoken about, associations and all of that, is quite relevant and quite important as well. So for me, just having listened to the discussions on hand, it does look exciting, and still a lot of work to be done, but I think there's quite a bit of hope that has been arisen from this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zenzi. Monica, with the experience you have been working with artisanal small scale miners before COVID, after COVID, what's your last comment on what, as leaders, what can be done? What can be improved to make our associations better after COVID? Monica, from what has been said. Okay.
Yeah, I think I think support for these associations remains critical. So they continue to address their mandate. Support is rallying various development partners who have grants that can assist in institutionalizing and constituting some of these associations to be able to avail resources towards them, so that then we have credible institutions and associations that are representing artisanal miners. There's also need for these artisanal miners to exchange knowledge and share information across the various countries where they operate. They tend to have similar issues, and to avoid repeating mistakes that maybe other associations and groupings have gone for, it would be important for them to also be able to collaborate. And maybe forums like this of Delve would be such critical forums for putting together different mining associations from different countries to have their leaders speak to each other, compare notes, and exchange, information of issues, emerging issues and trends that maybe would help them. And also for governments to acknowledge the role that the associations play in terms of bringing together these stakeholders in this critical sector to lobby for their issues. So government giving them the space and giving them opportunities to be able to give them feedback of ways in which they can support and work together with artisanal miners. So I think there's growing need for these associations to continue to be formed, institutionalized, and be supported to meet their mandate.
Thank you, Monica. Dr. Salau, can you wind up? I can see your hand up. If there's anybody who wants to contribute, you can put your input after Dr. Salau. Dr. Salau, can you?
Yeah, thank you very much. Once again, Blessing. Yes, as just what Monica had said, just a little chip up. We keep waiting on government, legal framework. I don't think we achieve our aims in earnest. Let's keep working. First of all, if you have a place that is geologically mapped and you know that it contains that mineral, whatever mechanism you are using, it will sustain yours. That's the artisanal miners. I've known that, I've practiced it and see it working. While we are now doing that, the framework they are using to institutionalize us, we meet us on board. Then it will be easy for us to key in and then keep moving. The rate at which we are going, if we keep waiting on government fund, I don't think we achieve that goal. The goals before us in earnest. That's just my contribution. Thank you very much. Hello, Blessing.
Hello. Yes.
I'm true.
Thank you very much. Oh, I was about, sorry, I did not unmute. Thank you very much, Dr. Salau, for the comment and for the contributions. Is there anyone else with burning before we shut down? Linda, I think with our time, I don't know, 7 minutes out of the time. So is there anyone with a burning question? Olusolo Olanie. Okay, can I give you just a minute before we?
Olushola Oladiyi. I'm from Nigeria. I'm the chief executive Berilos co-consultant, former deputy director, Nigerian Geological Survey Agency. I want to emphasize on the guest speaker's talk about the importance of survey. I'm a geologist, like I have said, I've introduced myself before, and I was involved for a long time in the regional mapping in Nigeria, and regional mapping and mineral exploration. And I know that it's not a very good thing to mine without having the geological data. Geological data is very, very important. And we are not even talking of just geological data. The data must be updated. So the best we can do is find ways of updating our data and bringing in the new and current transformation and new innovation in mineral exploration. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the comment. Kundai, I don't know if your network is now okay. I don't know if your network is now okay. If your network is right, you can go ahead. I can see Richard. Richard, you've worked with artisanal small-scale miners, and you have been working with artisanal small-scale miners. What do you think the role of leadership and artisanal small-scale associations would help in after this COVID era? And also, I can see Panashe. Is Panashe still online? Panashe, as a mining engineer, what advice can you give to artisanal small-scale mining associations in Africa, the leadership of mining associations? What advice can you give them on how they can assist artisanal small-scale miners just after this COVID era and after the experience they've gone through during COVID?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. So I think a lot has been said in regards to mapping a way forward for the associations. However, I think as artisanal miners, we need to look at mining with a different lens. I think now we are in the digital era, right? We are more connected than ever before. Artisanal miners can very much source a lot more funding from stock exchanges, from banks, from lenders, but they need data. It's all about acquiring the data. And I think attention needs to be paid to that. But it also is important to be artisans who practice safe mining and conscious of how much of an impact they have in their communities, and then they're mining responsibly. And then they can get a consultant, get a professional to build some portfolio of their mineral assets so that they can get funding. And there's so many platforms you can do so online. So I would say that would be my advice to artisanal miners.
Thank you, Panashe. Well, as an artisanal small-scale miner, really, I think coming out with something like what Delvi Exchange came up with was very important, because lots of things were cut out. Remember to having meetings when we were sitting together and talking. Those workshops were so used to, which was actually cut off because of COVID. We're so used to traveling every day, getting our day-to-day needs, the explosives, our oils, and everything that we'll be using at our small-scale mine. But during COVID, all this was cut off. We're so used to having association meetings whereby we'd all sit down and put our comments, talk, and discuss. But Delvi Exchange came up with the virtual part, which I've realized many artisanal small-scale miners are not used to come virtual. You would see that even on our forums right now, it's mainly the leadership who are actually getting connected. Most of the other artisanal small-scale miners who are right on the ground are not used to coming on virtually. They are not used to, we have to try now and change our mindsets and in the artisanal small-scale industry to be able to start learning things online, to be able to start learning things on WhatsApp. Personally, myself as an artisanal small-scale miners, it was actually difficult for me to start, like, for instance, I had to rush out of, we are used to be working out there where there's this connection problem, but there's need to be connected virtually and to learn online. And because this, I actually learned it more during the COVID era, because I was just used, you'd go to a workshop, you'd go to, and you'd learn there and go back to your work. But now, every day, day by day, you can start learning. Delphi Exchange brought this other side of to the artisanal small-scale miners, that we can exchange ideas, we can learn from each other virtually. We can have these forums, but I think now the need is more to educate artisanal small-scale miners to come on virtually, to come online, to be able to learn from others, to be able to be connected, to come on WhatsApps, to be able to share what they are doing and what is being done, to be able to share it. I've learned quite a lot in this short space of time. During Delphi Exchange, learning a lot from Dr. Salah, what they're doing out there in Nigeria, in Ghana. I've learned a lot from what they're doing in Ghana. I've learned a lot from what they're doing in Zambia. And it changes your mindset, and it makes you a better artisanal and small-scale miner. So I think my thinking is, my take home from what I'm learning here is, we have to go back. We are most of us here are associations leaders, are leaders of small-scale minings, are leaders in every. I think we have to go back there to the artisanal small-scale miners who are out there, to try now and tell them to start connecting virtually, to start connecting on WhatsApp, to start going online and learning more, even when they are at their mine sites, wherever they work, but to get connected and to learn ideas and to share ideas. And that's how we can grow. That's how we can be corrected from the wrong methods that we're doing, from the different things. That's how we actually learn new methods on improving ourselves as artisanal small-scale miners. So my take home is, let's try and put this to other artisanal small-scale miners and put the mindset of going virtual, put the mindset on doing things online, and so that we all learn and we all benefit. I can see Pastor Pauline Munda. From what we've learned, what's your comment today, Pauline?
Hello, can you get me?
Yes, we can hear you, Pastor. We can hear you, but you're on mute now. You need to unmute.
Pauline, can you unmute?
Okay.
And introduce yourself? Thank
you. Can you get me now?
Yes, we can.
We can hear you. Thank you. I'm clear. Am I clear?
Yes, you are clear.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you very much. You know, this topic actually is very, very exciting. But then I'll just analyzing that. I think the challenge that is there, it is with the actual artisanal miners. And one challenge is that most of them do not really have smartphones, because for them to go virtual, they need to have the appropriate phone, which is the smartphone, which they don't usually have. And in most cases, the reason being that some of them, they cannot afford the smartphone. And then the other reason is that it is of the connectivity, because most of these operations are carried out in the remote areas, and in these remote areas, connectivity is a problem. It's such a big challenge. So the people that
could I say something? Go ahead.
Hello, I'm breaking. So the the small scale miners who are more privileged and have got the smartphones and that have a chance whereby they can come into town in places where there's connectivity. These are the people, you know, that should take up their role of informing the people that are down there, those that actually micro. So like the people, we're talking about the associations. So the people that are in that lead the associations, you know, we should take up our role and just bring awareness to the people down there so that they can know about the marketing, what are the marketing trends, you know, at the moment. I mean, what is the best way of mining, including also, you know, personal safety, because personal safety also is another issue. The market is the issue. Then the health, the environmental issues, that's another issue. So it is us who are more privileged, you know, who are supposed to go down there and teach the people that are there. So that is the only challenge with our artisanal, you know, because usually when I know before there was a separation, it was small scale, but then eventually there was need also to include the micro. So it's just ASM. So when we are talking about ASM, but then we have in mind the people that are actually in small scale, but then we forget the actual artisanal who are more vulnerable. I think there we have to find a way of how do the people who are actually vulnerable, the artisanal, get connected, or they also have the privilege of going virtual. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pauline. I can see Cletus Chisanga's hand up. Cletus, can you put your comment? Can you have the floor, please? Can you unmute, Cletus? Can you unmute yourself? Okay, Cletus' hand was up. I think we can't hear him. Can you unmute yourself, Cletus? Okay, from what we've learned today. Hello? And what we're learning.
Now, Cletus is he's on now.
Yes, Cletus. Okay, Cletus.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can,
Hello?
Cletus.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
We can
in the
hear
first
you.
place, yes, in the first place, I would like to commend you for the good job you have done in organizing such a meeting. It is quite educative, although you needed more time to sensitize or inform a lot of people. I have seen we're only about 3, if not 2, males who are participating in this meeting. I don't know how you organized it. Otherwise, it is quite educative. Then the other thing is the financial resources. In associations, the first people we organize to do one thing in mining or to start a mining business, they want first of all resources. Now, I can remember you advertised that for funding, but the application forms was quite complicated, of which some of these miners, they are not educated to analyze what you need in those application forms. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cletus.
Have you heard me
I
clearly?
don't know if you are in I don't know if you are in the WhatsApp group for Delphi Exchange English Africa.
No, I'm not.
We've got a WhatsApp group.
You can forward me the number for the WhatsApp group.
All right.
So that we.
Okay.
Otherwise, it is a very good forum.
We'll give you a link.
Come again.
All right, Cletus. So, how did you get the flyer from a friend? Okay, it's breaking up. All right. Is there anyone who's got some take homes that we can go with from our discussion today as we are winding up? I think we're left with about 5 minutes. As we wind up to close our discussion today, anyone with take homes?
It's quite important, and I'm not sure how far. I joined the forum early this year only, but I don't know how far we are with formalizing an association. Obviously, the Women in Mining Association of Africa has a mandate only to that part only, so we cannot bring in artisanal small-scale miners as another sector, although we represent those women. But the challenges that the small-scale miners are experiencing, especially those who cannot attend virtually, and that's a very important point. We cannot have virtual discussions if the ones affected are not able to participate in it. So I think one of the key takeaways for me is a very urgent need to formalize an association on the ground. And it must be regional with an overarching body across the continent, so that the challenges that the small scale miners are facing can be addressed properly. I liked what she had presented earlier about, defining the association, defining having clear objectives, so that it is from the start very clear as to what the association will represent. But a lot of talk on Zoom meetings is not gonna solve the challenge that we are facing on the ground. That's all I wanted to contribute, but it's a burning desire, a need right now for this to be formalized. Thanks, Blessing.